Alright students, let's go ahead and now revise the chapter of tax invoice, credit note and debit note. Everyone over here, we started learning GST with goods and service. Goods and service has to be supplied. Supply can be interstate or intrastate. Interstate, I GST will be levied. Intrastate, C GST will be levied. Once GST is levied, it has to be collected and paid by a taxable person. How will he collect? He will have to go ahead and calculate GST is equal to value of supply into rate of tax. Once you know the value, you know the rate of tax, you will go ahead and raise the tax invoice, credit note, debit note and delivery challan. Tax invoice section number 31, 32 prohibition, 33 amount should be shown in the tax invoice and other documents. Amount of tax should be shown separately. Debit note and credit note is section number 34. Delivery challan is rule number 55. Now, section number 31 has section number 31(1), which goes ahead and says tax invoice in case of goods should be raised if the supply involves movement before or at the time of removal. Sir, if goods don't involve movement or any other case may always remember before or at the time of delivery or making it available. Sir, when you are going in and supplying the goods, always show description, quantity, value, tax and such other particulars as told in rule number 46. Invoice should always be in triplicate, original for the king, that is the recipient, duplicate for the transporter, and the triplicate copy which is there is for yourself, that is the supplier. Sir, whenever you are going in and supplying services, tax invoice in case of services should be issued before or after the provisioning of service, but within 30 days or 45 days. In case of service, you should go ahead and show description, value, tax, such other particulars. Quantity is not required, and sir, you should go ahead and issue 2 copies. Sir, one for the original for the recipient and duplicate for the supplier. Sir, this 45 days is applicable in whose case? In case of services, 45 days is applicable in case of NBFI. Sir, NBFI means NBFC, banking company, financial institution and insurance company. In rule number 47, it is also told that if there is NBFIT, now NBFC, banking company, financial institution, insurance company and telecom company, and they are going ahead and doing supply of service to their distinct person under section number 25, then they should go ahead and raise the invoice. When the supplier is going before or at the time, the supplier records in the books of accounts, or basically when the supplier is going ahead and recording the transaction in his books of account, or the before the expiry of the quarter in which the supply is made, whichever is earlier basically. So if you have gone ahead and done the entry today, you will go ahead and do it today. Sir, if you have not done the entry today, but the month is going to quarter is going to expire by the end of the quarter, before or at the end of the quarter, you should go ahead and before the quarter ends, you should go ahead and raise the invoice. Right, everyone? Section number 31(1) done. Section number 31(2) done. Section number 31(3), section number 31(3), section number 31(3) goes ahead and talks about RN bar SP. Right, everyone? R for revised tax invoice, N for no tax invoice, B for bill of supply in case of exempt supply, A for advance का केस में receipt voucher, R for refund voucher, S for self invoice, P for payment voucher. Right, everyone? Let's go ahead and understand section number 31(3)(a). Revised tax invoice should be issued within 1 month. Remember always, revised tax invoice should be issued within one month. It is not 30 days, it is 1 month. And sir, I became liable over here. I went ahead and got registration certificate over here. Now, if I had gone ahead and applied within 30 days and I got the registration certificate will be valid from the day I become liable. So, from the day you become liable till the date of grant of a registration certificate, whatever supplies you have done, for that you would have issued an invoice, but not a tax invoice. So, you have to now issue revised tax invoice, collect the GST and give it to the government. Now, revised tax invoice which you are going ahead and issuing, people went ahead and asked, sir, so many revised tax invoice, why to issue? So, government went ahead and told you can go ahead and issue consolidated revised tax invoice. If you had gone ahead and supplied to registered person, whether intra or inter, sir, consolidated revised tax invoice is not possible. But if you had gone ahead and supplied during that period, if you had gone ahead and supplied to whom? Unregistered person. So unregistered person का case में intra-state में you can give consolidated revised tax invoice. You can issue one consolidated revised tax invoice for all your supplies. But interstate का case में you can issue consolidated revised tax invoice, but for that value of supply where the amount is greater than 2.5 lakh, for that you can't go ahead and issue what? Consolidated revised tax invoice. So it says over here for invoices, revised tax invoice for invoices issued between effective date and the date of grant of issuance of registered certificate. For intrastate, issue consolidated revised tax invoice for all taxable supplies to unregistered person. For interstate, no consolidated revised tax invoice if value is greater than 2.5 lakh. Those are known as B2C large invoices. Sir, no consolidated revised tax invoice to if supplies to a registered person, whether intra or inter. Then we have section number 31(3)(b), which goes ahead and says no tax invoice if the value of supply is less than 200 rupees. And sir, but this 200 rupees wala clause is not applicable in case of multiplex, because multiplex ke government has gone ahead and told they will have to compulsorily do e-ticket, and e-ticket will only be deemed as the tax invoice. Yes, and e-ticket is required even if the value is less than 200. But sir, other than that, if a person is going ahead and supplying where the value of supply is less than 200 plus recipient is unregistered and recipient is not demanding, then sir, for those invoices are not required, but for all those supplies at the end of the day you have to go ahead and raise consolidated tax invoice. Done, everyone? Then we have 31(3)(c), which goes ahead and says if you are going ahead and supplying exempted goods or service or both, or you are a composition dealer, you can go ahead and give what? Bill of supply. No bill of supply if value is less than 200. Then we have section number 31(3)(d), which goes ahead and talks about receipt of advance. If you have gone ahead and received an advance, then you have to go ahead and issue what? Receipt voucher. Received an advance, you have to give a advance receipt voucher, right, everyone? When if you don't know what is the supply car nature going to be, or if you don't know the rate of tax, you have to show it as interstate and you have to charge 18% GST. Sir, section number 31(3)(e) goes ahead and says, sir, registered person, if he has gone ahead and received an advance but he did not go ahead and supply and he did not issue the tax invoice, but he is going to cancel the contract, or goods are being returned, sorry, if he has gone ahead and not made any supply, or he has not gone ahead and provided any service, government is going ahead and telling if you have received the advance, no supply, no tax invoice, you can go ahead and issue a refund voucher. Then 31(3)(f) goes ahead and says, sir, if one person has gone ahead and supplied you some supply on which you are liable to pay the tax under RCM, if the person is registered person, he will give you a tax invoice. In the tax invoice, he will go ahead and write tax payable under RCM. You just have to pay the tax under RCM. But if you have received those supplies on which tax is payable under RCM and the supplier is unregistered, he will not go ahead and give you a tax invoice. In that scenario, 31(3)(f) clause F says you should go ahead and raise a tax invoice yourself. So, sir, when you are liable to pay under 9(3) and 9(4), you have to issue an invoice with respect to goods, services, or both received from unregistered person on the date of receipt. Sir, now if I am going ahead and making a payment to that supplier who has gone ahead and supplied me, and I am liable to pay the tax under RCM, then that supplier, whether registered or unregistered, when I am making the payment to them, I should go ahead and issue a payment voucher, right, everyone? Now, I went ahead and taught you section number 31, section number 31(1), in case of goods on removal, making available or delivery, I should raise the invoice. Services ka case mein 30 days or 45 days in case of NBA FI. 31(3) went ahead and told revised tax invoice, no tax invoice, bill of supply, sir, A for advance ka case mein receipt voucher, refund voucher, self invoice and payment voucher. Then 31(4) goes ahead and talks about whenever it's a continuous supply of goods, which is basically supply done on a continuous or recurrent basis, then in that scenario you are required to raise the invoice. Whenever successive statement or successive payments are involved, in that scenario you are required to issue the invoice before or at the time when such successive statement are issued. So if I am going ahead and issuing the statement, I should raise the invoice, or whenever payments are being received, issue invoice at the time of such statement or payment. Done, everyone? Then we have continuous supply of service. Always remember, continuous supply of service is a service whenever a service is provided on continuous or recurrent basis and the period is greater than, Baba, remember, greater than 3 months. Where the contract due date is ascertainable, invoice should be honored before the due date. Due date is not ascertainable from the contract. Due date of payment is not ascertainable, then honored before you receive the payment. If payment is linked to completion, honored before completion of the event, you should raise the invoice. 31.6 goes ahead and says supply of service ceases before completion, then at the time of cessation, how much ever service you have provided, that much kind invoice should be given. Invoice at the time of cessation to the extent of supply before cessation. 31.7 goods sent on approval or return basis. When I am sending, it is not a supply, but sir, when he gives the approval, that is the time of supply. Approval, or once 180 days gets over, then you should go ahead and raise the invoice. Everyone remember, removal is the date. 6 months they give you time, including the date of removal. Then after the date of removal, you have to see 6 months. It means once 180 days, 6 months gets over, immediately you have to go ahead and raise the invoice. So before, at the time of supply, or 6 months from removal, whichever is earlier. I went ahead and told you about section number 31.1, which told about goods. Section number 31.2, which told about service. 31.3, which told about RN bar SP. 31.4 went ahead and told about continuous supply of goods. 31.5 continuous supply of service. 31.6 supply of service ceases before completion, and 31.7 goods sent on approval. Now we have section number 32, which goes in and says prohibition on unauthorized collection. If you are an unregistered person, don't collect any tax. Registered person, collect as per the provision of the act or rules. 33 went ahead and told, sir, whenever you are going ahead and issuing any tax invoice or other document, please go ahead and show the amount of tax which is being collected, right? Amount of tax to be indicated in the tax invoice and other documents which are being issued. There is one rule number 46 over here, which goes ahead and says, if you are registered person supplying to unregistered person, taxable and exempt supply both, you can go ahead and issue one document. The name can be invoice cum bill of supply, right, everyone? But remember, rule number 46A is not applicable when you are making supplies to a registered person. It is only applicable when you are supplying to an unregistered person, when you are supplying taxable supply and exempt supply both. I went ahead and told you about section number 31 over here, 32 which told prohibition, 33 which went ahead and told amount of tax to be shown separately. We have 34 which goes ahead and talks about credit note and debit note. Section number 31, 1 goes ahead and says what are the scenarios. Section number 34, 1 goes ahead and says what are the scenarios in which credit note can be issued. Sir, when one or more tax invoice is already issued for the supply and taxable value or tax charge is more. Sir, goods services are returned, goods are being returned, not services. Services can't be returned. I'm teaching you. Can you return? No. Goods are being returned or goods services or both supplied deficit. In that scenario, whoever is the registered supplier, he can go ahead and issue what? Credit note, and one or more credit note can be issued. So one invoice there can be multiple credit note. For multiple invoices, there can be one credit note. Always remember, whenever you issue the credit note, in that month ka return, you have to go ahead and disclose that credit note, and government will give you an adjustment in your liability. Are we clear, everyone? So you went ahead and returned me the goods. I went ahead and gave you your 50,000 rupees back, plus I gave you your GST back. So government will also go ahead and give my adjustment of liability. Government will go ahead and reduce my liability. For an example, I did not return your GST, then government also will not go ahead and give me any adjustment of liability. Always remember, if you have not gone ahead and given the benefit to the customer, means if the burden you have passed on to the customer, then government will never give an adjustment of the liability. But otherwise, whenever you are going ahead and issuing a credit note, you have to go ahead and show it in the return, and that month ka liability will be adjusted. The maximum time limit for you to go ahead and issue a credit note with respect to a year is September month of the next financial year, and then you have to disclose it in that month ka return. So September you should issue it and then disclose it in the return which you are going ahead and filing for the month of September, or actual date of annual return, whichever is earlier, and the tax liability shall be adjustment. Remember always, tax liability ka adjustment is not given if you have gone ahead and passed on the burden. Are we clear? Then we have section number 31.3 which goes ahead and says debit note when it will be issued. Sir, when one or more tax invoice is issued for the supply, taxable value or tax charge is less. Sir, if I have gone ahead and charged you taxable value or tax less, then I will go ahead and say you are my debtor, I will give you a debit note, collect more tax from you and give it to the government, collect my amount also or collect more tax from you and give it to the government. For that I will give you a debit note. Registered person shall, it is mandatory to issue debit note, right everyone? For multiple invoices there can be one debit note, for one invoice there can be multiple debit notes. What is the time limit to go ahead and issue? Sir, whenever you are going ahead and issuing, there is no time limit. Government is telling Baba collect, there is no time limit. Whenever you issue, just go ahead and show it in the month ka return when you are going ahead and issuing the debit note. Here we are done with section number 31, 32, 33 and 34. Section number 31 went ahead and told about the tax invoice related details. Yes everyone. 32 went ahead and told about what? Section number 31 done. 32 went ahead and told about prohibition. Unregistered person should not collect. Registered person should collect as per the provision of the act or rules. 33 went ahead and told amount of tax to be shown separately. 34 credit note and debit note related discussion. Then everyone, we have rule number 55 which goes ahead and says that sir, delivery challan, 3 copies of delivery challan should always be issued. One for the consignee, one for the transporter, one for the consignor. What are the situations when you need to issue delivery challan? Sir, whenever you are going ahead and supplying liquefied gas or transportation of goods you are doing to the job worker or transportation of goods for reason other than supply, when it is not supply, might be I am sending some goods for testing, then in that scenario I will go ahead and issue what? Delivery challan and send the goods. Sir, when goods transported for supply but invoice could not be issued at that time, then you can send along with a delivery challan. Sir, when the goods are transported in complete knockdown, semi-knockdown or batches or lots, then in that scenario also delivery challan can be used. Now we have e-invoicing ka provision. Number 22 ke liye the amendment over here is e-invoicing ka provision. First of all, it became effective from 1st of October 2020. Okay? After that, various amendments came. Sir, what is applicable for your number 22? Remember, effective from 1st of October 2020, the provisions have come. But effective from 1st of April, 1st of October 2020, the provision relating to e-invoicing and come into picture. But effective from 1st of April 2022. That means for your number 22, what is applicable? You have to remember e-invoicing means first of all what? Sir, you have to generate an invoice. You have to go to e-invoice1gst.gov.in. You have to put those details which are required over there and you have to get invoice reference number. Getting of invoice reference number means basically you are following the e-invoicing ka provision. Now, once you get the invoice reference number, you can go ahead and use the invoice reference number. Basically, you can go online and generate your e-invoice ka soft copy. Are we clear? Whenever e-invoicing provisions are applicable, remember you don't have to generate 3 copies or 2 copies of your invoice. One e-invoice which you have generated, you can send to transporter, you can keep with yourself and you can give it to you can give it to the recipient also. Sir, for whom is e-invoicing provision applicable? Always remember e-invoicing provisions are applicable if you are a registered person whose aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year from 17-18 exceeds 20 crore. Baba, earlier it was 50. For your number 22, for your number 22 exam, it will be how much? Number 22 and onwards, it will be 20 crore rupees. So, e-invoicing provision, first of all, from 1st of April 2022, if you are a registered person whose in any preceding financial year from 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, 20-21 or 21-22 has gone ahead and exceeded how much? 20 crore rupees, then on you e-invoicing provisions are applicable. Always remember you have to go ahead and do e-invoicing with respect to your B2B supplies and for your export. So when you are supplying to registered person or for your export, you have to do e-invoicing. E-invoicing not applicable to government department, local authority, SEZ unit or those referred to in 54.2, rule number 54.2, rule number 54.3, rule number 54.4 and rule number 54.4a. Rule number 54 talks about tax invoice in special circumstances. And rule number 54(2) goes ahead and talks about insurance company, banking company, financial institution and NBFC. Rule number 54(3) talks about GTA. Rule number 54(4) talks about passenger transportation service, and rule number 54(4)(a) goes ahead and talks about multiplex. Rule number 54 says, what is rule number 54 telling everyone? Rule number 54 goes ahead and says, rule number 54(1) is talking about ISD. ISD का invoice related detail. Rule number 54(2) says, if you are NBFI, NBFC, banking company, financial institution or insurance company, you can issue consolidated tax invoice or any other document. Might be a bank is going ahead and giving a statement at the month end, that is only the tax invoice. GTA going ahead and giving tax invoice or consignment note will also be deemed as the tax invoice. Passenger transportation service में ticket is deemed as the tax invoice. Multiplex का case में e-ticket is deemed as the tax invoice. Done everyone? Now e-invoicing provisions are not applicable. First of all, e-invoicing provisions are applicable if you are a registered person whose aggregate turnover is greater than 20 crore in any preceding financial year from 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, 20-21, 21-22. Any year may, if your turnover was exceeding 20 crore, right everyone? With respect to your B2B supplies, and Baba, exports are actually supplied to unregistered person, but still for exports they are going ahead and telling e-invoicing provisions are applicable. Now e-invoicing provisions are not applicable if you are, sir, BGPM GLS. You have to remember what is B, sir. B for banking company. Banking company means NBFC, NBFI. Sir, NBFC, banking company, financial institution and insurance company. G for GTA. P for passenger transportation service wala. M for multiplex का case में also it is not applicable. GLS. Baba, or BGPM, right? Say GLS. Mercedes, GLS. Sir, G for, sir, government department. L for local authority and S for SEZ unit. Remember, it is SEZ unit and not developer. They have told SEZ unit. Can I go ahead, everyone? Yes, sir, we got it. Now, everyone listen to me very carefully. Government went ahead and told dynamic QR code. Sir, what is a dynamic QR code? Dynamic QR code means, supposing you went to go ahead and buy some goods from a shop, the shopkeeper should go ahead and give you a dynamic QR code. Basically, whatever is your billing, that billing ke liye one QR code should be given so that you can scan, pay and go. Government wants to promote digital payment, and government went ahead and made some shopkeepers, means so for some supplier, dynamic QR code mandatory. Always remember one thing, e-invoicing ka case mein, also, when you go online and you do invoice, when you generate an invoice reference number, the portal gives you a QR code, but that's a QR code not for payment. That's a QR code having embedded invoice reference number. But here in dynamic QR code, what happens? A code will be given by the shopkeeper to you so that you can scan, pay and go. Right, everyone? Now, dynamic QR code with effect from 1st of December 2020 if registered person whose aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year exceeded how much? 500 crores. So 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, 20-21, 21-22, if your turnover exceeded how much? Any year may your turnover exceeded 500 crore, then on you dynamic QR code ka provisions are applicable. With respect to your B2C supply, that is when you are supplying to unregistered person, you have to go ahead and give dynamic QR code so that he can scan and pay. What is the purpose of dynamic QR code? It is to enable UPI payment, and dynamic QR code is not applicable. Dynamic QR code is not applicable if you are BGPMO. Sir, if you are NBFI, that is NBFC, banking company, financial institution and insurance company. G for GTA, P for passenger transportation service provider, M for multiplex and O for OIDR under section number 14, basically who is supplying his services from outside India. That OIDR who is there, government is selling on these people, not applicable to those referred in BGPM plus O. Are we clear, everyone? Yes, sir. Got it. Everyone, listen to me very carefully. Now, if you go ahead and see dynamic QR code which is there, for that, government have gone ahead and given some circular, right? What I have gone ahead and done, I have gone ahead and created the summary of the circular so that we can go ahead and understand this. Sir, I want this summary. You can go to rameshsoni.com. In rameshsoni.com, free resources, November 22 folder, I will put this. Are we clear? rameshsoni.com, free resources, November 22 folder mein I'll put this. You can download this. Everyone over here. Clarification relating to applicability of dynamic QR code. Sir, DQR code I will be writing. So it means dynamic QR code. Is dynamic QR code required for export? Baba, export ka case mein always remember, exports are considered as B2B supplies only. Yes or no? Actually, export is B2C. But for e-invoicing provision, they have gone ahead and told consider export as what? B2B, and you have to do e-invoicing. Hence, because e-invoicing provisions are already applicable, they are going ahead and telling, because in the e-invoicing provisions, we are going ahead and treating it as B2B, dynamic QR code is not applicable. Are we clear? Sir, however, tell me one thing. Sir, for export, it is not applicable. What if, suppose, sir, supplier is in India, recipient is outside India, place of supply should also be outside India, only then it is export of service. But place of supply is in India, then it is not falling in export ka definition. If it is not falling in export ka definition, then sir, it is a B2C supply because it is not export. But then government went ahead and further clarified that dynamic QR code is still not required even if place of supply is in India. It means it does not fall within export of service ka definition. That is, place of supply is in India, then it is not export of service. In that case also, QR code is not required because the person outside India, he will not be able to use for the payment. Are we clear, everyone? Because if you give dynamic QR code to a person outside India, he will not be able to use. Then people went ahead and asked, sir, when you are giving the QR code, along with the QR code, what are the other parameters we need to go ahead and provide? Government went ahead and told parameters required to be captured. What are the parameters? What are the details which are required to be captured in a dynamic QR code? When I give you the dynamic QR code, what are the details that should be there? It should have Gundi, Gundi. Sir, what is Gundi? Baba, Gundi in Hindi means lady dawn. ठीक है everyone? ठीक है. Now everyone over here. G for supplier GSTN number, U for UPI ID, I for invoice, N for invoice number, D for date of the invoice, I for invoice value, and G will be square, it is GST amount. Are we clear, everyone? Now listen, they had also gone ahead and told you required to put pay's bank account number and IFSC. Later they went ahead and clarified that bank account details of the pay is not required because UPI is already linked to a bank account. Are we clear, everyone? Now first one clear. Export ka case mein it is B2B and hence you will not go ahead and provide dynamic QR code. Parameters which are required, Gundi parameters, right? GSTN number, sir, supplier's GSTN number, GST amount, CGST, SGST, whatever is there. U for UPI ID, I for N for number and date of the invoice, D for date of the invoice, and I for invoice value. Are we clear, everyone? Sir, you told that invoice number and date is required, right? But sir, for an example, one customer came to my shop, I went ahead and showed him the dynamic QR code, he scanned and paid, I received the payment, and later I am going to generate the invoice. Then when I am showing him the QR code in the digital display, how should I go ahead and capture my invoice detail over here? Because the invoice is not generated yet. So government goes ahead and says, see over here, in case of retail sale over the counter, the payment is received by digital displaying the QR code, but invoice is generated after payment, hence invoice details are not captured in the dynamic QR code, but you told invoice related details are required. But government went ahead and then told, in such a case, unique order ID will be generated. Means for every order, you will generate one order ID and then show him the QR code. No, in the QR code, show that order ID or sales reference number. Instead of invoice number, you can go ahead and show that order ID. So, sir, in such a case, the unique order ID or sales reference number which is linked to invoice may be provided in the QR code for digital display as long as the details of such order ID, sales reference number, linkage with the invoice are available in the processing system of the supplier and Cross reference of such payment along with unique order ID or sales reference number is provided in the invoice. So sir, in the QR code, invoice details are required. But instead of that, you can give the order ID or sales reference number. In your system, please store a link between the order ID and invoice number. And sir, in the invoice, provide the order ID details also. Can I go ahead, everyone? Yes, sir. Clear over here. Then, sir, supplier shows the dynamic QR code in the display, but customer pays through other modes. Sir, full insult. I showed the dynamic QR code, but he did not use only. He made through other UPI payment. He used it card or cash. But nothing. Just go ahead and put in the invoice how he made the payment. You showed your work is done. You are compliant. Now, however he has made the payment, cross-reference of such payment on the invoice will be deemed as compliance. Then, sir, they went ahead and asked, sir, supplier provides. I am providing, sir. I don't provide QR code, but I go ahead and send a UPI request and I am going ahead and receiving the payment. So, supplier provide customer other modes of payment like UPI collect, UPI indent through mobile or computer app, and QR code is not displayed. Government is telling that is also an electronic online payment only. However, you are taking the payment, that you have to go ahead and give a cross reference in the invoice. Cross reference of such payment on the invoice will be deemed as the compliance. How you receive the amount, that you have to put in the invoice. Then, is generation and printing of dynamic QR code mandatory for prepaid invoice? Sir, customer has already made the payment to me. Later, should I print the dynamic QR code in the invoice? Government is telling how he made the payment, that details you print in the invoice, enough. No cross reference on the invoice is deemed as the compliance. Means first government told, no, you are not required to go ahead and print the QR code. Just cross reference on the invoice will be deemed as the compliance. Sir, once e-commerce on the online app has complied with the dynamic QR code, will supplier using the e-commerce be required to comply with dynamic QR code requirement? Government is telling Flipkart, which is the e-commerce operator, and you, the supplier, you both are different person. Every supplier has to comply with the dynamic QR code requirement separately. QR code provisions are applicable to each suppliers separately. Flipkart will do his own compliance, so he has to go ahead and comply with dynamic QR code requirement. You are going ahead and issuing invoice, so you have to go ahead and comply with the dynamic QR code requirement separately. Sir, is dynamic QR code to be provided on invoice issued to yuan holder? But yuan holder is not a registered person. Hence, it is considered that an invoice which is issued is a B2C invoice because they are not registered person. Hence, whenever you are issuing an invoice to a yuan holder, it is a B2C invoice, hence dynamic QR code will be required. Sir, if payment is collected by e-commerce or other person authorized on behalf of the supplier, when Flipkart is going ahead and collecting supposedly payment on my behalf, Flipkart will show the QR code which will have UPI ID of the Flipkart. So if I go ahead and authorize someone or an e-commerce operator is going ahead and collecting payment on my behalf, in the QR code, the UPI ID will not be of the supplier, but it will be of the e-commerce operator, or it will be of the person who is authorized by me, because that is the person collecting the amount. It says in such case, UPI ID of such authorized person may be provided in the dynamic QR code instead of supplier's UPI ID. Sir, if I have gone ahead and received part payment in advance or through adjustment, might be the person has given me some voucher or coupon before generation of dynamic QR code. 10,000 rupees ka jeans pant I sold, that person has gone ahead and given me 5,000 rupees ka coupon, so I should go ahead and give dynamic QR code for 5,000 rupees or 10,000. Government told dynamic QR code is for collecting the amount, and hence you should give dynamic QR code only for the balance amount. But on your invoice, please go ahead, the details of the total value along with the details of cross reference of part payment, advance, what is the coupon, discount, coupon or voucher you received, and the remaining amount to be paid should be provided in the invoice. Right, everyone? Here we are done with your QR code related clarification. Please come in your book. They have gone ahead and given clarification with respect to person who are going ahead and taking jewelry. So if I am going ahead and taking jewelry from one state to another for approval, they are going ahead and telling when you take the jewelry on approval, on the way when you are going, you should have a delivery challan. E-way bill is not required. When you reach over there, you are showing the jewelry. If the person says, I like it, raise the invoice there and then. But to move the goods, you should use a delivery challan. When the sale materializes, then you have to issue an invoice. If you are going from one state to another state, you should always charge IGST. Same way, government went in and told artwork sent to art galleries. When you are sending the artwork to art galleries, that time it is not a supply. When the person, that time it is not a supply. So when you are taking, you should take along with delivery challan, and e-way bill is required. Right, everyone? When you go over there and the person says, I like the painting, somebody bought the painting in the exhibition, that time you should go ahead and issue an invoice. If you both are in different state, means the supply is in different state, place of supply is in different state, then you should charge IGST, otherwise CGST and SGST. Sir, how many digits of the HSN code is required in an invoice? Always remember, if you are a person whose aggregate turnover is up to 5 crore, in case of B2B supplies, 4 digits, B2C it is optional. But if your turnover is greater than 5 crore, 6 digits are mandatory, whether you are doing B2B supplies or B2C supplies. Then government went ahead and gave one more circular with respect to what? With respect to expired drugs. Sir, I went ahead and supplied some drugs to one person. Drugs means medicine. I went ahead and supplied some medicine to one person, and that medicines have expired. Now he will go ahead and return it to me. He will return to me. I will go ahead and issue him a credit note. When I issue him a credit note within the time limit, then my liability will be adjusted. Yes, everyone. But if I don't issue him a credit note within time limit, then I will not get an adjustment in my liability. So generally what happened in case of drug industry, what was happening was people were going ahead and returning the drugs generally after the time limit for issuing the credit note is gone. Hence government went ahead and told Ramesh, listen to me very carefully. You buy the drugs, make the medicine, supply the medicine, let him take the ITC, that transaction is over. Now when he is going ahead and returning you the drugs, tell him to go ahead and show it as fresh supply. You take the ITC of that fresh supply. When you destroy the drugs, destroy the ITC. Simple. Government went ahead and told first option, returned by the registered person, treated as fresh supply. He will go ahead and issue you a tax invoice. If that person who is returning is a composition dealer, he will issue a bill of supply. If he is an unregistered person, he will give a commercial invoice. On the basis of the invoice, if any GST is charged, because he is a registered person, if he is a registered person, he will charge you a GST. Take the ITC of the expired drugs. When you destroy the drugs, ITC also will get destroyed. Manufacturer destroys the returned drugs, then reverses the ITC availed on such return supply. But sir, I went ahead and bought powder, I made medicine, gave the medicines to him. Now medicine expired and it came back within time. So sir, when it comes back within time, I will go ahead and give a credit note and government will give an adjustment in my liability. Now in this scenario, when I destroy the drugs, the original ITC which I had gone ahead and taken on the powder will also be destroyed. So sir, if supplier can issue a credit note and retailer returns by issuing a delivery challan, if credit note is issued within time, liability may be adjusted by the supplier or else liability cannot be adjusted. When you go ahead and destroy the drugs, the ITC which you had availed on the powder will also get destroyed. Now the next one over here is goods sent or taken out of India for exhibition or export promotion. Government goes ahead and says, since you are taking it outside India, that time it is not a supply. You are taking for export promotion or for approval, that time it is not supply, no tax invoice, goods can be moved on delivery challan. So when you are taking it outside India for approval or return basis pay, basically might be for an exhibition, government is telling when you are taking it, that time the sale is not materialized, so it is not a supply, take it on the basis of a delivery challan. Done, everyone. When sale takes place, then you can go ahead and raise the invoice. Invoice when the sales takes place. Sir, if sale doesn't take place, do one thing. If nobody goes ahead and buys it, if the buyer does not accept it, you took it for showing it to someone, he did not accept it, please bring it back within 6 months. It is not a supply and no tax invoice required. But if buyer does not accept and goods don't come back, it will be deemed as supply and you have to raise a tax invoice. Always remember, whenever it is a supply, because at that time of going it was not a supply, so it was not zero rated supply, you were not required to pay any IGST. But supposingly now the supply materialized, you went ahead and took it outside India and the supply has materialized, then in that scenario you will be eligible for zero rated supply ka benefit. You can go ahead and take ITC ka refund. So you can get ITC ka refund in that scenario. Right, everyone? Here we are done with a quick revision of your chapter of tax invoice, credit note, debit note. The only amendment in the chapter is e-invoicing provisions. From 1st of April 2022, the e-invoicing provision may changes that registered person whose aggregate turnover in any preceding financial year, any from 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, 20-21, 21-22 has exceeded 20 crore will be liable for e-invoicing ka provision ka compliances. Yes, everyone. And that's it. He will have to do e-invoicing provision ka compliances. Right, everyone? I will go ahead and stop all my discussion on the chapter of tax invoice, credit note, debit note over here. Congratulations, people. This one will be available on rameshsoni.com. Free resources, November 22 folder. This chart, you can download it from there. Which chart, Baba? Clarification related chart. Right, everyone? Bye, guys. Have a great day. Take care.